got a bunch of people on the call here who've done all kinds of archery for many years, and I just wondered if maybe it's in an area or a discipline you haven't had a chance to try yet. Are there any questions you have maybe about field archery, on maybe your setup and what you need to have on your, different kinds of equipment classes? Anything that you'd like to ask a question about?
Yeah, let's hit both of those. If you can just give me a description of the field format. I think I've glanced over some descriptions, but if I can just get a real brief exactly what it is, that would be helpful.
Okay, who wants to take that one? Paul, Rob, either one of you want to jump in on that?
I'm actually only ever shot one field round myself, so I'm still new at field, but I have shot it.
Paul, maybe you want to, take a crack at it, Paul.
I'll take a crack at it. So the field round, the last couple of years we've been doing, it's like a half a field. We're doing 14 field targets, 14 hunter, and then 14 animals. The field round consists of that, the white target with the black dot, and we have different yardages. They're kind of like on even numbered, yard shots, like a 50-yard shot, 60, 70, 80. 80 would be the furthest shot on that. And then we've jumped over the hunter round. That's the black face target with the white spot in the middle. Those yardages are kind of, not a slam dunk. It might be a 42 or a 53, 47, 49 type. They're not kind of set on a standard, pin setup, so to speak.
Sure.
And that furthest shot, I do believe, is 70 yards. And then there's 14 of those, 14 field and 14 animal. The animal is a paper, like a silhouette drawing on paper of an animal. And then there's a black dot on most, and that would be 21 points. The other vital would be 20, and then outside that would be 18. And there's all lines highlighting the scoring rings. If you were to miss the target, then you would step up to another stake if there is one, and then the scoring would start decreasing accordingly. It'd be 17 for the spot, 16, and then 14, and so on.
Okay.
You're shooting cross canyons, up hills, depending on what range you're at as well. I mean, the terrain, you've seen down at Saratoga, the terrain is not, your footing is not necessarily friendly to you sometimes, but then unlike on the hunter rounds, there's fans where you shoot one arrow from one post, you walk up, shoot another one. It's kind of makes like a fan. And you shoot one arrow from each of those. The biggest thing that I've found is not only do you got to be your A game on shooting, you got to be on your A game on knowing where to stand, which target to shoot, and at what time and everything. So if you've never shot it and you want to shoot it, come on out. We can walk you through, put you on a target with someone who has shot the range before, knows the range, and definitely take you through and, okay, shoot from here, shoot the bottom target, shoot the right one, and so forth. So we don't like to tee people up and for failure, but we want to help you along. We can't do your shooting for you. That's up to you. But it's to me, that's my favorite. I think that's my favorite is field archery.
Chris,
that sounds like a challenger.
Chris, what equipment are you shooting? A compound, a recurve, hunter setup, freestyle?
Shooting a compound. I've been shooting the bow hunter freestyle category. Now I'm shooting a black gold assault sight. It's a fixed pin slider. Is that allowed on the field round?
That is a
It-
great
it is-
question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Very
It-
timely.
Yeah.
Do you have 5 pins or 3 or 1 or
4 pins.
4 pins? So here's the thing with that setup that we're talking, and you got a short stabilizer
Yep,
and then
10-inch stabilizer.
no
Right.
lens in the scope housing. Okay. So if you want to shoot true bow hunter freestyle, you can use your 4 pins, but you cannot slide it while in scoring.
Okay,
If you need to use that or want to use that as a slider, then you would jump to freestyle.
okay,
I shoot the same setup with the exception of I got 5 pins and it's a slider, but it's locked in place and I don't move it while scoring.
Yeah,
okay.
the rule is you can have up to 5 pins. So if you've got another pin, you could pop it in there and have a 5 pin.
Uh-huh.
However, this year, MAA is going to incorporate a modern bow hunter division where you can use those sliders.
Rob, you want to just address that a little bit or describe that in some more detail?
Sure. So basically you could pull all your pins out and just leave one in there and shoot the modern bow hunter class. And that's your own separate class away from the regular bow hunter freestyle and the freestyle class. And then you can move your sight throughout the round because most people nowadays are actually using a slider sight for hunting. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
get that market up or try to get people to come from the woods to shoot some field and not change anything.
yeah.
So
So you're saying
yeah,
that
go ahead, Chris.
you're saying that you can use the slider as a 1-pin slider. Did I hear that right?
Correct. In the modern bow hunter class that we're going to offer.
Okay.
Or
So
you could have 3, 4, or 5 pins in there too.
Yeah, you
And
could have as
slide
many
it.
pins as you want.
you can have multiple pins,
Yeah,
multiple
Yep.
fixed pins on the slider. Okay.
yeah. But you can use the slider in the modern bow hunter class.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
don't
right.
lock it down
The
and-
trick here, Chris, and the complexity of it is on the MAA side, we're doing that because we have some flexibility from the NFAA to offer different classes at our state events. And
Okay.
Rob and I have been talking for a while, and we really are, like Rob said, trying to encourage people that are bow hunters to try field archery. And so we're doing that for the MAA side. Paul and the MSAA crew, they don't have that classification. So at least this year. So,
Right.
you'd have to decide you'd have to make a decision about, what you're going to do on that. You could shoot the modern bow hunter on the MAA side and then shoot freestyle on the MSAA side, or you could set up a true bow hunter freestyle setup, with 5 fixed pins as Paul was describing, and shoot bow hunter freestyle on one or both of the competitions.
Okay.
Did
So
I get that right, guys?
Yep. And one other thing too is this modern bow hunter class, like Tim said, this is just an MAA state level. It's not offered at the national level or any regional level shoots.
okay.
So, yep.
Well,
Really
I've
an
probably
experiment.
got
It's kind of an experiment for us.
okay. Yeah. If a guy was to shoot MAA, then I'd need to get the MAA membership or can you shoot as a guest?
Yes, you can shoot as a guest or join the NFAA at the National NFAA organization. And if you do that, then an MAA membership comes along for the ride on that.
Okay. Okay.
And then
All right.
with the NFA membership, you're covered for other shoots that we have throughout the year. So that's what
Even
Okay.
even USA Archery ones. One of the MAA does USA Archery and NFAA shoots, and there's both organizations offer reciprocity for membership. So if you're a member of the NFAA, you can use your NFAA number to get a USA Archery number that you can use for a USA Archery event. So that allows you to shoot really anything, which is nice.
Okay. Yeah, sure. All right. And then on the MAA side, does a guy have to just remove the slider knob out of your sight, or just trust a guy?
Just lock it in place and don't touch it. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, typically you'll be shooting with people like in your shooting division or, close to it. And, it depends on the group. If you're neck and neck with someone, they might be like, hey dude, you can't move your slider. If you're starting out and be like, hey Chris, just want to let you know you can't move it. Okay. And then that would be it. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I have seen at shoots where it'd be like, hey, by the way, you shot the wrong division, and the people are very receptive of like, oh, I didn't know. And that's fine, and that's kind of what this format is for, so we can kind of get some of those clarifications out there and again, come on down there, put it, Todd, who is on the meeting here tonight, he usually does the bail assignments. And then if you just say, Todd, I don't know what I'm doing, he will put you with someone, that has been around the block a few times. So.
Sure. Yeah.
It is kind of intimidated. I get that. But once you do it once, you'll be like, wow, this is great.
Right. Yep. Love it.
Well, maybe we'll pop over to Tom and see if you've got a question. Tom, you're muted right now, so if you're going to speak up, you'll need to unmute yourself. Welcome.
Thanks. I didn't have a question. Matter of fact, I don't know enough about it yet to even ask an intelligent question. So I was just going to sit in and get what I could out of the presentations. But thanks.
Okay, great. What events have you shot? Have you shot an MSAA event in the past, or an MAA event?
The only one I've ever shot was this past weekend, the 50 meter.
Great. Okay. That's awesome.
That's about all the arrows I can handle at one setting.
I got you. All right. Thanks. Glad you joined. Hope you hear something useful. Chris, anything? We'll give you the floor back to you. Did you have anything else you wanted to follow up on?
Well, let's see. I guess while we're going through events, there's I was talking to Adam Kramer today and up at Archery Country, and he said the state 3D shoot, is that coming up in Elk River? Is that right?
Yep.
Maybe just a quick run through on that one.
I'd like to hear about this one myself, as we were talking about earlier.
So I'm actually the archery chair for the Elk River Sportsman's Club, so I'll be the host, kind of setting it up and everything. So Paul, Todd, correct me if I'm wrong on anything, but it's basically 30 targets, and you can shoot one score each day, right? And keep your best score. Is that what it is for the 3D or not?
Hey,
To shoot one score, and then you can shoot for fun. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, shoot your one score, but you can shoot multiple days. There's no set time. You can just show up and shoot at in between 9 and 2. I think we got it set up 9 and 4.
How does
Okay.
MSAA set out the groups? How do you guys determine the shooting groups for that when it's kind of open to come in anytime?
open.
Yeah, pick your own group. Try to have at least three people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can bring 2 other people that you know and go shoot with them.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right.
And it's all known yardage, is that right?
Yep. Todd, we're
Ring-
muted there.
Can a guy do rangefinders at that, or is that, or do you just get the known yardage and And inclination,
You could bring your
Uh,
rangefinder.
you can, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And then
Same is true of field archery, by the way, and you'll need to at Saratoga. just a just a heads up. You'll want the rangefinder with the angle calibration on it for sure.
Yep.
And then I think, what is it, 50-yard max, except for open class, I think it's 60 or,
I believe that's what I read.
okay.
So, yep. 50-yard
right.
max for bow hunter freestyle and freestyle class.
Okay.
So,
Is that Elk River Club? Does it get pretty dark? Are most of those targets going to be reasonably well lit, or how tricky do you guys get on that?
it's actually both. You got some tunnels. You're standing out in a field shooting into a tunnel, or standing out in a field and shooting into the field with wind. So it's actually a pretty good mixture of everything.
Okay.
And lots of poison ivy. So be prepared. There's already a bumper.
Well, you're really selling it, Rob.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right.
So yeah.
And then Chris, I think Tim was kind of talking about it. I don't know if that was actually before or when we first started, but on the MSAA side, we have, at the end of the year, we have a thing called Grand Champion. If you shoot the indoor 950 meter field and 3D, you tally up all those points. You got to shoot the same division. You tally up all those points, and then the one with the higher points, you get Grand Champion of the Year. And it's a super nice plaque, and it's a huge accomplishment to shoot them all for starters, to get them, to shoot them all, and then to maintain at each to get that high score.
I'll bet.
It's kind of a cool thing to kind of set your goals towards.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would, I missed the,
Todd, you're still
the
muted,
900.
by the way.
I don't think he's muted. I think it's the audio.
Oh, that could be. Todd, you probably just are using the wrong microphone or something on your phone. Sorry, Chris, didn't mean to interrupt there. It looked like Todd really had something to say there that was going to be good. So I wanted to make sure we heard it.
I wonder, can you go to chat?
By the way, as long as the chat's coming up, I put a link in the chat, by the way, Chris, we have an FAQ on our MAA website that goes through the 3 different field archery rounds. It's just some videos that NFAA published, and we just link to those videos. And if you watch those short videos, it will give you a really great preview of the targets and, what is a fan and a walk up and just all that stuff that Paul was explaining really well before. But if you want to go and revisit that, you can link to those videos there. And that's a nice summary too.
I was going to say, right, if you look right over Paul's right shoulder, that's one of the Grand Champion plaques right in the middle there, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
Right, Paul? Yeah. Yeah.
There we
That's
go.
it.
All right. That's a
So-
Do you have
doozy.
a few? Do you have a few of those, Paul? Those do you have?
Just I have one Grand Champion. Yeah.
But I just had one question regarding outdoor shooting in general. And that's, how do you beat Tim Wilson?
Well, it's going to take some practice, I guess.
Yeah, that's the problem.
A lot of practice.
So
Oh,
I
it's
was
been-
just
yeah, it's been
emailed a
fun.
question by somebody.
Oh,
Well,
all
just-
right. We can do that.
So he was wondering. So he's just starting to get in archery too. He's been shooting with our Joy Club, and he's wondering. He's noticing that a lot of shoots are 2 days. Does it really take 2 full days to shoot? And what kind of commitment is needed to be good, I guess. And I guess the answer to that is it depends on what shoot it is, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well,
Like-
do we have, I mean, do we have any 2-day, the Voyager Cup on the MAA side is a
And then-
2-day shoot.
and then
The
section-
qualification and sectionals is 2 days.
Yeah,
That's right. The NFA
Yeah.
sectionals are 2 days, but you guys don't have on the MSAA, you guys don't have any 2-day shoots anymore. Is that right?
Right.
No,
I
Yeah.
mean, just this weekend, I think he might have combined like, because there was 2 different shoots, both of them this weekend.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think he was
Right.
wondering about
Whatever
that.
commitment he wants is how much he wants to put into it. It's what he wants to get out of it.
Correct. Yep. So that's all he kind of had. So I just figured I'd read
Okay.
it in case someone else.
Well, maybe we'll just take that opportunity to just talk. Maybe some of the guys, like I said, some of the people on this call have been shooting a long time. What do you think? And everybody on this call has won tournaments. That I'm looking at here. What's it take from your perspective if you want to get to the level of being able to win a tournament in a competitive division? What's been the secret for you in the past?
Well, you practice for the tournament coming up. Like a little bit of practice I did do was for the 50 meter and the 900 round. Now I'll switch gears to just practicing for the field round. Unless you have all kinds of time to practice for everything, just focus on the next tournament, I guess.
For me, I know it was, I dedicated at least 4 to 5 days of shooting per week back when I was starting out. And that's what it took for me to be good. I notice now, I mean, I'm shooting maybe once or twice a week and I ain't getting anywhere on that. So you're going to have to shoot, at least 4 to 5 days a week, I think, to be competitive.
I guess most of the people that have been successful and they're shooting 200 plus arrows a day, and when they do shoot, and really working on their form, and like for the field round, working on their distances. And
What do you go ahead, Paul? Sorry.
I was gonna say, I agree with Todd, practice for the shoot that you're gonna do. And that definitely helps get you in that mode and get you used to that target and so on, and then try to fine tune all the little things that's like gone wrong instead of okay, I practice on a 5 spot all year round, but then I come to a 900 122 centimeter. It's like, wow, that thing is huge, and obviously we're at 60 yards versus 20. But the one thing that I'd like to read, I hope this archer that messaged you, Rob, will watch this at a later time. But the one thing that I found, it was down at Wasika, it was on their whiteboard. It says, don't be upset by the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do. And I read that and I had to take a picture of my phone and carry with me a lot, because that is so true. We practice one day and we hit the pie plate at 20 yards and we're like, oh, that's good. And then we go to a shoot and we just get spanked. And it's like, why, what happened or what, I think that's a good thing to kind of have in your back pocket to remind us every once in a while. And I'm guilty. I don't shoot as much as I used to anymore, but
I'll throw a couple things in. I think I want to reiterate what Todd said about, and multiple guys have said about preparing for the shoot that you're going to do. I have found personally, my sight picture, when I'm looking at my dot at a 122 centimeter target at 60 yards, say, and then I switch to the next day, this last weekend, shooting at 80 centimeter target from 50 meters, they're different. I mean, they look different. Compared to a field target, or your dot, or your fiber, or whatever it is you're aiming with, when you're looking at a different target, and it changes how that looks to your eye and your brain. For me anyway, it takes some practice to sort of reorient my brain to aiming at a different kind of a target. So I just think it's really important to spend a little time looking at the target that you're going to be shooting at, so that you really kind of get that into your head and get that programmed in. That's been, for me, I noticed that. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely noticed that when I'm shooting. And the other thing I was thinking of is put yourself, if you want to compete and do well in a tournament, you need to put yourself into some pressure situations more often. And so the question I wanted to ask is, how important do you guys think it is to participate in a league or something like that in an archery club and, a local club? How has that impacted your shooting, being in that kind of a weekly league situation?
Yeah,
Well, it's definitely, if you can shoot against people, with people that are top-notch shooters and are trying to beat you, and then you're trying to beat them, more competition that you can, and the better the competition you shoot against, the more your game will rise to their level, or to a level, say, above them, if that's the case. But I definitely want to shoot against competition.
What were you going to say, Rob?
So yeah, that's definitely helped me with that. And also, I don't want to lose to Valerie and Marla all the time, so I gotta because they're right there.
Was that a long ride home on Sunday?
Yeah.
I asked Val if she beat you, and she kind of like, she didn't say yeah right away, but she kind of like, yeah.
Well, I didn't shoot, so she beat me.
Oh, okay. I must have been. Yeah.
Paul and Marla was shooting. Paul and Marla Rupar were shooting. So I know there's always a competition there for those two. Any other tips for somebody who wants to up their competition game?
I mean, you can take it, if you want to take it to the next level, find a coach. I mean, that's a lot of people, there's a lot of coaches around that'll help people out, and obviously for some for a fee, some more than others. So you can go that route.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think that's good advice.
Okay.
Okay.
Paul, do you have any tips for bow hunters shooting field on pins, where you set your pins at?
We were kind of talking about that the other day up there at Sartell. Chris, the way I do mine is I got a 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And then what I'm about to say kind of falls back on what I said earlier, that the more you shoot, you're going to get to know your bow, and then your bow is going to get to know how good a shooter you are and understand what a good shooter you are. So you got that little relationship going on. When I can't, if it's a 48-yard shot, I don't have a 48-yard pin. So I take my 50 and I aim right at the bottom of the 5 ring, or the white circle or black circle, depending which target. I aim right at the bottom of that, and I can usually get it in there. If it's a 52-yard shot, then I take my 50 and put it on the top of that circle, and I can usually, I'll find it after 4 arrows. One of those 4 will get in there. If it's a 45-yard shot, to me, that's what I like, because I have a hard time putting the pin on the bullseye. I have that target panic, and I freak out, and I just drop right down, and there it sits. It hangs there all day long, right in the bottom. But if I force it up, it comes down, up and down. So my 45s, I can put my 50 and 40 right on the top and bottom of the circles, and they'll go right in. Now, when it comes to the 70 and 80-yard shot, I need a little luck on my side, but I stack my pins. I don't know if you're familiar with stacking.
Is that kind of like what some call it Kentucky windage or something? You move a pin up to where another pin was?
Yep, exactly. And then I always add on a couple more yards, because the further out you are, the less energy that arrow has, and it's gonna, so I always add on a couple more or bump it up, and it's a lot easier if you're in wooded areas, because you can find a branch or a leaf or something in the trees in the background to put that pin on in order to stack it. I love telling this story. We were out to Yankton and we were on like a range that they don't use all the time. They have this range set up, but it's not used a lot. It was an 80-yard shot, slight downhill, but the background was the river. There was nothing to put my pin on. So I had my bow at full draw trying to find something to stack. Well, off the corner of my eye, I saw this little piece of that, or the foamy stuff that floats down the river. And I'm like, that's going to run right into where I need to shoot. So once that thing got across, I had my pin on there and I let her buck, and I don't think I hit the bullseye, but I was on paper. It was a scoreable arrow. So that's when it gets tough.
Whatever it takes, right?
Whatever it
Yeah.
takes.
That's
But
nice.
that's kind of a disadvantage, if you will, that we have. You know, I don't have an 80 or 70, yard pin, so we have to make do with what we got,
Any
yeah.
sense in trying to stretch the pins out and just finesse the gaps, so to speak?
I mean, yeah, if I understand what you're saying correctly, but I think the more you stretch them out, then you might not have enough room for a 60-yard pin in your sight housing.
Right.
If you start
Yeah.
sliding your bar forward or back too much or too little, you might run out of room for a 20 to 60-yard pin.
Yeah.
If that's what I'm thinking you're asking there.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yep.
In conversation, just actually, I think it was yesterday or the day before this weekend, there was talk, I think we have, I think there's a list of kind of the yardages for the field round, yardages for hunter and animals. So you could, if you're good at math and common denominators and all that stuff, you could actually figure out, okay, I'm going to put a 32-yard pin and I'm going to put a 56-yard, and kind of figure that out. So you'll get the best of, that. I've heard of guys switching out. They have a sight for field and they have a sight for hunter round. And then they swap it out for whichever round. However, if you're shooting field, hunter, and animal all in one day during the same scoring sequence, you're making a change to your bow and you can't do that.
Yeah.
Down at Nationals, you shoot all day, you shoot field, and then the next day you shoot hunter, and then the next day you shoot all animal. And you stop scoring at the end of each day. In that case, then yeah, you could switch out a sight and shoot it that way too. So
Sure. Yep.
Paul, I know I think maybe Bill and Julian Hockle used to do this. They used to favor setting those pins at the 5s instead of the even yardages. So they'd have a 25, 35, 45, 55, 60, whatever it was.
mm-hmm.
And I heard you say you do the even, but do you have an explanation for why on the 5s would be better? Or I'm not a bow hunter setup guy, so I don't know. Maybe just personal preference.
I don't know why. I guess I'd been just kind of doing it, and I like change, but sometimes I don't like change. So I'm just going to leave it.
I think maybe I've heard them say, maybe I heard Bill say once it had some advantages for him specifically on the hunter round. I don't remember that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't speak to it with any knowledge, but
Yeah.
I believe you're right, Tim.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe something where, if you think, since most people are going to have their pins set 20, 30, 40, 50, well, we're not going to put the targets there. We're going to put them somewhere out and in between.
Yeah. Well, with
Well,
the
it's
field setup, you always know how far they're going to be. So it's, every field round is prescribed. So they're all going to be the same. So you can get, unlike a 3D round, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey, Kenny. Hey, Joe. Welcome. Good to see you guys on the call. Although Kenny, you're sort of a silhouette there. We can't really see you.
Oh, sorry.
But,
Can you hear me okay?
yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I ended up having to work later and turn on some light. And so I hope that helps.
We've been talking so far. We've been talking about mostly field archery stuff.
Okay.
And setting up for field archery. Did you guys, either Joe or Kenny, did you have a question you wanted to throw out for the group here? We got a lot of collected wisdom here on the call.
I guess like field archery is just completely new to me. Archery in general, I've like shot a bow for fun for a few years. Just last year, started getting really into it, and then did my first league this year. So I finally understand kind of the whole indoor thing with the 5 spots at 300, and then there's like the 3 spot targets. But field is new to me. That's not 3D, right? You're still shooting at targets, but outdoors.
Yeah.
And is it?
Yeah.
It sounds like they're known distances. Are they at odd yardages, or is it like 20, 30, 40? Or do you have?
Depends on the round. So
okay.
the field targets are on even yardages, and the hunter targets are kind of spread all over a little bit more random odd yardages than that. Yeah.
Well,
Talking about a guy who's learning how to shoot competitively. This guy Kenny, he shoots his first ever 300 5-spot round in a tournament. His first ever 300 was in a tournament. That's how you show up.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that was a state tournament. I was so surprised. I had no idea how
Tell us how that last end felt.
So originally I was actually 1 behind, and I felt a little bit better going into the last end until they made the announcement that it was the last end. And so then I'm like, oh no, this is like the last end. I thought there's one more, but then my heart started racing, and then I just, I draw, anchor, shoot. I shoot 4 arrows, and they're all in, and I'm at the last arrow, and I am just holding for a long time. Like I'm just shaking in my head, and it flies, and I'm like, no, that's low, because I can see going low, but it's still in there. And so I freaked out. I ran and I like hugged one of my buddies. He spilled his coffee because I'm like, this is my first 300 ever. So
do it in front of a bunch of people. I love it.
Yeah, it was great.
That whole shaking thing, I get that when they say it's the first scoring end.
Yeah. I know how that feels.
And the second, and the third, and the fourth.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Kenny, are you going to come to the field archery meetup tomorrow? Can you make it?
Yeah, I'm going to try and do that.
Okay.
I'm actually trying to, I saw you last week, and I had my kind of 3D rig set up, and I'm going to get together my target bow tonight, so I still have to do some things. Fortunately, like my wife and I recently bought a house, and our realtor, for a closing gift, he got me a bow press. So that's pretty nice.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to spend some time after this to kind of set that up. And I'm going to try and make it out tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm doing a little, I'm calling it a field archery meetup at Rapids Archery Club tomorrow night. I just sent out an invite to a bunch of folks who were kind of new to field archery and said, come on out. I'll take you out on the loops and I'll show you how it all works. So hopefully we'll get a few people to come by for that. Joe, are you going to be the mystery guest listening in, or do you have a question? Joe's shot all this stuff before. He knows all about how this stuff works.
I've shot all this stuff before, and I've had the privilege or the opportunity to go to a few national shoots and whatnot. And it's all been fun. I don't know if this would be optimal time to ask this, but I've heard about cut charts. And I don't know, they confuse me, I guess, because I know a lot of people, they'll range a target, then they'll look at a cut chart, and then they'll set their sight, for like a freestyle class, rather than using the angle compensation on like a range finder and then just setting their sight to that. So I guess I'm kind of curious if anyone has any insight on what way is better, or what's the reason to do one over the other.
Okay.
I'm out.
Anybody got any thoughts on? Yeah, Parsons is out. Do you have any thoughts on that? I've got a few ideas, but
No, I never used the cut charts. No, I do not.
okay. My thoughts, Joe, are I suspect that in the early days of angle compensating rangefinders, they weren't as good as they are now. And I think they just keep getting more and more sophisticated. I have rarely found a situation lately where my rangefinder doesn't give me a pretty good number. Now, that said, I have a cut chart for Saratoga. Like I have a note. I have some notes on my phone because I know that first 65, is it a 65 on the North Range, that first target?
55.
55. Yeah, that's steep downhill, or the first target on the South Range. And my rangefinder gives me a really good number, but it's not maybe quite right. So I always take careful notes at Saratoga on every time I shoot that course. I've got a little notebook with me and I'm writing down exactly what I shot those angles for, because I don't shoot there every week. You guys get to shoot there a lot. So I don't do that. So if I feel like I'm going to be competitive there, I better have some notes, because I'm not going to remember it, So, so I think I think anything less than a couple yard cut, honestly, the rangefinders are going to do just fine. But on some of those extreme ones, I find, and I think the other thing that happens is I shoot a blade rest, and when you're doing a steep angle on a blade up, that arrow, the point of the arrow, because of the angle, is not putting as much pressure on that blade, as opposed to then when you're shooting a down angle in the same way, similarly, you're not if I'm shooting horizontally, the point weight just from the lever arm there, the torque of that point weight out there, that's going to pull that blade down more. So when I'm shooting a steep uphill, like that 15 yarder on the North Range at Saratoga, shooting really steep 30 yards up, my rangefinder doesn't compensate for the relative weight on my blade, So I find I find that arrow is going to go higher because there's not as much weight on that blade rest when I'm up at that angle like that. So I think now if you've got a drop away rest, probably doesn't make a lick of difference. But there's some instances where I think that's where knowing your equipment really well and going around, shooting that target and making careful notes. When I'm shooting that 15 yarder, I actually shoot it for 13.2 or whatever the number is, right? There's some other number that I've got from just doing it a few times.
That kind of
it's hard to go.
Up
Go ahead, Paul.
I was gonna say, Chris, one thing that I've done in the past, and like Tim, kind of keep a notebook in your quiver pocket, but you'll go to some random shoot and there's a 3-yard shot just after you get done shooting a 100-yard shot. So if you're a freestyler, one thing you got to do is make sure that you change your slider to fit what that yardage. The other thing is, people walk up to a 3-yard shot and they're like, "Oh, I'll just put my 20-yard pin on it and I'll hit it." No. The more you shoot, the more you're going to know your bow, and then you'll figure out that on a 3-yard shot, I think I shoot it for about 45 yards.
Yeah, it's 59 yards on my bow.
Yeah.
3-yard shot's the same as 59 yards.
And it's really weird how, you just, if you don't do that or don't just try it, in your backyard or something, you'll get to a shoot and you'll be like, I didn't even hit a target at 3 yards. What the heck? So it's those little things that you can just kind of do and keep a mental note or a cheat sheet in your quiver, and you come up to a target that's 3 yards, boom, I'm going to shoot it for 45. And then the rest of the guys in your bail, they shot it for 20 and they didn't hit it. So little things like that,
really, that really comes into play on the field round a lot on the birdie target where you start at 35 feet. you move all the way up to 20 feet, you'll actually shoot longer yardage at 20 feet than you will at 35 feet. That's one where you can, it should be an easy target, but a lot of people give up points because they do not know where they should be aiming. So that's one that pays the practice on that one.
Especially with the
never
bow,
even thought of it.
especially with
Yep.
the bow hunter setups. The freestyle guys, most of us are using Archer's Advantage, or we're using Archer's Mark, or one of those bits of software that just spit out all the yardages, you know. So that's, you know, it's not as much of a mystery for us. But if you got a bow hunter setup, that's not how it's going to work for you. So you got to make sure you shoot those birdies somewhere and figure out what, you know, where you need to put your pins on all those birdies.
I want to ask John what pin he uses.
Whichever one I can see first.
So,
I
John,
just
if you don't,
focus. I just focus on the target.
I was gonna say, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, John's a recurve shooter. But someday I'm gonna be shooting with you in recurve. Someday.
Okay.
I just got
Not just recurve, but traditional, no sights. Or
Traditional, no
anything.
sights. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what advice would you give to me if I want to start out shooting the equipment that you shoot?
Oh, well, for myself, if you look at the barebow, what they call a barebow class, barebow shooters are pretty much string walking now, where they know how many strands down their serving they need to be by, you know, underneath the knock, and how far down they have to go. And they use the tip of their arrow, the same anchor point each time. So you have to, you're basically sighting in your bow, kind of like you do with sights. It just takes a lot more focus on that, and remembering, especially for field archery, you have to remember what all these are, because you can't have any written memorabilia. So it's a lot more practice to learn your distances, what you have to do with those distances. Myself, I don't use a point on. I don't string walk. I shoot split finger. And I just bring it up, and when it feels right, I let it go. And I used to do it a lot better than I do now. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, the shooting one day or 2 days a week, something like that. It just doesn't really cut it. You have to really work at your shooting and getting your shooting form down. So,
I just put another link into the chat. This is the NFAA equipment class FAQ we have on our website. There are a bunch of different classes, and I know MSAA has pretty closely mirrors the NFAA classes. There are probably some distinctions I'm not aware of for you guys. I just don't know, but the NFAA ones, it gets pretty confusing. You know, what's the difference between barebow, recurve, barebow, traditional, you know, especially on those. So I actually put together a little FAQ page on our website that has a photo. There's longbow, for example. You know, what's the difference between longbow and traditional? Can you string walk or can't you string walk? You know, with NFAA, at least, there are certain classes where your index finger has to be in contact with the knock of the arrow the whole time. Well, then you can't string walk. And string walk is simply moving your finger up relative to the knock so that it changes the angle of the arrow when you come back to your anchor. So it's you don't have a sight, but you know your position of your hand on the string sort of functions like a sight. That's legal in certain NFAA classes, but not others. So it's really important to know, you know, what your class is, and the rules are out there. You can read them, but it's hard to keep it all in your head, at least for me.
The traditional class is the one where you do have to keep your fingers in contact with the knock. And the other thing, Paul, I would kind of suggest is talk to different archers and see what they do. And because they all seem to have a little different technique and style that they may use, and gather your information. And some of these modern recurves, if you get an ILF limbs, you can adjust the tiller on them to different tillers, positive, negative on the top and bottom limbs. And I don't understand all that stuff myself because I'm shooting a primitive, ancient bow, I guess. But there's a lot of different things to learn with the technology that's advanced in these new bows and the recurves and things like that. So
the string walking
John,
is fascinating to me because you'll see the guys with their fingernails counting serving, like counting the threads down on the serving. They'll know that 45 yards is like 12 serving loops down, you know, and they'll put their thumbnail down on that and draw back, and there it is, 45 yards, you know. It's pretty impressive.
They actually have tabs that have marks on them, so you can just hold it up there, put your nail on the tab, and then move it back down because they got little marks on them.
Yeah.
So John, is that tiller tuning? Can they do that while they're shooting? Change tiller for certain yardages?
I have not seen any rules as far as USA Archery that says they can't adjust their tiller.
Okay.
But as far as from the judging point, you know, barebow is fairly new. It's really come on in the last few years here. So some of the rules are still coming through. I can't remember seeing anything about changing tiller though.
Yeah,
Okay.
barebow is probably the fastest growing category in competitions right now of any category. It's especially, it's just amazing how fast it's growing.
Yep.
Well, we're at an hour, and I want to just give an opportunity to say, well, first, thank you guys for jumping on. Does anybody have one last question? I think we've covered a lot of great territory here. Anybody have one final question for the group?
Good to go.
I'm not coming up with any. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys
Well,
have done a great job.
Paul, if somebody wants to have some information about an upcoming MSAA event, what should they do?
Join the Facebook page, check out our website, check out the Arrow. We've got 2 beautiful new editions of the Arrow that came out in the last few months here. Yeah, join the Facebook page, and there's a lot of information being pumped out that way too. It is probably our most communicative platform that we use, because that's kind of where most of the people is on Facebook. Check out, you know, I'll go you know, at the club level, you know, check out the clubs in your area or across the state and just check out if they got any shoots going on too. And it's always nice to you know, support other clubs too, because we all need each other to stay afloat, and it's a good way to get some practice and a good way to support a club is to just attend the shoot. But
Thanks. On the MAA side, I would similar advice, you know, find the Minnesota Archers Alliance group on Facebook and join that. We always post about upcoming events there. You know, find us on the website on Google, just Minnesota Archers Alliance on Google. It'll take you right there. We've got a bunch of FAQs and links to all the registrations for our events coming up. Yeah, and check out both organizations. You know, Minnesota is blessed, I think, to have 2 great organizations putting on statewide tournaments and serving the needs of archers around the state, from local clubs to JOAD to all the different kinds of archery out there. And between the MSAA and the MAA, we've pretty much got it covered. So, you know, we're fortunate to have so many opportunities to enjoy archery together. And the information's out there. we don't hide it on purpose, but it can be hard to find sometimes.
Right.
And you can always email president@the MNAA.org, and I get those emails. Is there an email address, Paul, that people could reach out to somebody at the MSAA side?
They're all on our website on the Contact Us tab. We got all of our positions are posted out there. I honestly don't know what my email for the MSAA is, but it's out there.
Head honcho at mnarchery.org. Acting head honcho at mnarchery.org.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody. We hope you'll make it out to some shoots, and if you're watching this later, we'll have this up on YouTube, and hopefully lots of people will find this later, and you'll find it a good resource. Spread the word, and thank you guys for joining tonight. It's been fun.
Thank you for putting it on.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Rob.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Yeah.